This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Dangerously cold temperatures have gripped our province, and they are expected to linger. More on that in just a moment. But first, shelters are scrambling to make space and help keep people warm during this cold snap. The CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
When the cold weather hit Winnipeg this week, Frankie turned to the Thunderbird House. He says the space is welcoming and has good energy. And soon, it will be the site of an outdoor camp.
During the summer, there wasn't anything like that. Like, yes, there was camping here, but that was by the river. So that's all new to me. I hope it works out where they have more warm spots.
That's actually looking better already.
Riley Nepanak and volunteers were hard at work today. This is the third winter Indigenous organizations are setting up a teepee. Nepanak says the camp is a partnership between Initiative, Thunderbird House, and the Sabe Peace Walkers. It'll operate a minimum of 4 days a week and 24 hours a day during extreme weather.
Any warming space really in the city is really important right now because the weather is extreme and someone could pass away in this weather.
Like many shelters in the area, Silo Mission is full. A pop-up warming space was created to make sure everyone has a place to go. But with this cold snap, they're seeing numbers in the triple digits.
It's certainly a concern to see numbers that high. That means that without the pop-up space, we would literally have hundreds of people on our street without anywhere warm and safe to go.
But opening the shelter is dependent on three things: the temperature, staffing, and whether other shelter space is available. Tessa Blakey Whitecloud says still, it's only a temporary fix.
We wish that, maybe there were shelter beds to meet that need, but more importantly, that there was the long-term sustainable plan to build the housing that could move people out of shelter, because really this isn't a home.
You gave my friend Phil the zippers.
But for Frankie, Thunderbird House is at least some short-term comfort.
Be thankful that you got your car, be thankful that you're stuck in traffic. There are people that literally are 24/7 up, or it's hard for them to do anything, and just be grateful for what we have.
He's grateful there's one more warm place this winter. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Our Riley Leachuk joins us now. Okay, Riley, how long will this extreme cold stick around?
Well, Janet, this extreme cold is going to persist at least into the early part of next week, but long-term projections looking like this could even stick around into late next week as well. So most of the province right now, save for the Red River Valley and the Hudson Bay coast, under this extreme cold warning, which extends way out into Western Canada, even into parts of British Columbia. So we're expecting wind chills in that -40 to -50 range. And no sign of it letting up as we get into the day. On Saturday into Sunday, you can see this cold air mass really sinking south, even into the Dakotas and into Montana as well. Even as we get into Monday and into Tuesday, much of that sticking around. And as I mentioned, temperatures on a cold but slightly upward trend as we get to late next week. We'll go more into detail about that when I come back.
Thank you very much, Riley. City plows are out there busy cleaning priority streets and back lanes after yesterday's dump of snow. Starting Sunday, they'll turn their attention to other residential streets. That means a rotation of residential parking bans kicks in beginning Sunday night at 7. They'll continue until 7 Wednesday morning. To find out when plows will be in residential areas where you park, go to the city's Know Your Zone app. If you're parked on a street when it's due to be plowed, you risk getting a ticket and having your vehicle towed away. Now, here's something new. To give people more options for parking, whenever a residential parking ban kicks in for plowing, the city will now temporarily lift its ban on parking overnight on streets marked with winter route signs. Best idea? Get the Know Your Zone app. There is hardly anything more frustrating on a frigid winter's day than waiting for a bus that's way behind schedule. CBC's Emily Brass has more on why so many Winnipeg transit users are being left in the cold.
Hey Have you ever waited for a Winnipeg transit bus that never showed up? Well, the city says that's because there's a shortage of bus drivers. It says last year that shortage led to bus runs being canceled 1 day out of 3, and that means the lineups get longer, the passengers get packed in when that next bus finally does arrive. So what's the city doing about it? Janice Lukes chairs the Transit Advisory Committee.
We're doing all we possibly can and more than we've done in the past to secure drivers. Recruiting fairs and bus ads and social media ads, newspaper ads. We have many amazing potential drivers from all over the world, so we're reaching out to them in their first language. We're seeing a really good increase in people wanting to use transit again after the pandemic, but we have I'd call it a severe driver shortage.
The city managed to recruit 139 new drivers in 2023, but in the same year, at least 110 retired or left the job. Right now, Winnipeg Transit is short 155 drivers to operate a full winter schedule. Bus drivers almost went on strike last month, but decided not to after voting in favor of a new collective agreement. It offers new safety measures, better benefits, and a raise, and the union hopes that attracts more people to apply since the driver shortage is having a big impact.
You get to the end of the line where you should actually have time to just kind of have some time for yourself, go to the restroom, maybe have a quick bite to eat. You're not getting that. You're already late and you have to just change your signs and head back the other way. So it does create a lot of burnout for members when you're basically, it's just go, go, go the whole time. And hopefully the recruitment is going to be bolstered, and hopefully the retention with this new contract that we just negotiated will have people stay and not think about retirement as soon as some of them have been.
Even with the new deal, many say the pay isn't high enough to get them on board. New hires will make about $24 an hour after they finish training. That is, if City Council approves the new deal in the coming weeks. Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Crown wants a life sentence for the Winnipeg man who killed a young RCMP officer east of Regina 3 years ago. Lawyers made their sentencing arguments in Saskatchewan today. Court heard emotional statements from both the family and the police force. Tyreek Reed has the details.
Constable Shelby Patton's mother says she has lost all joy since losing her son. The family read their victim impact statements at Regina's Court of King's bench.
This is something that we shouldn't have to prove, how much we love Shelby and what a good person he was, what a good member he was. But, I mean, it's important to put everything on the table.
His father talked about how proud he was when his son became a police officer and how heartbroken the family has been since the 26-year-old's death in June of 2021. Alphonse Travers pleaded guilty to manslaughter in September. The Winnipeg man was high on crystal meth when he and a friend drove to Saskatchewan in a stolen truck. The RCMP constable pulled them over in Wolseley, east of Regina. And when Travers tried to drive off, Shelby Patton fell off the running board and was run over by the rear tire. Saskatchewan's top RCMP officer also read a statement. She'll never forget breaking the news to Patton's wife.
I use the word devastating, and I'm not sure that adequately describes the impact when you watch a young woman, her entire world literally collapse in seconds. All her hopes, dreams gone. It is impactful, and you will never, I will never forget that moment.
The Crown says the maximum penalty, life in prison, is appropriate, given the victim was a police officer. And Travers has a criminal history stretching back 30 years. The defense is asking for 16 years, saying it was a mere accident. Travers read a statement in court. He was very emotional, crying as he apologized. He said he knows people will never forgive him, but takes responsibility for what happened. Travers is due back in court for sentencing at the end of February. Patton's family wants the maximum punishment, saying this crime has given them a life sentence of heartbreak. Tyreek Reed, CBC News, Regina.
The NDP says allegations around the former PC government's involvement with the CO silica mining proposal deserve an investigation. As the CBC's Ian Fraze explains, there are complaints of corruption against the former premier.
Demanding an investigation. Today we are filing 2 formal complaints with the Manitoba Ethics Commissioner, asking him to investigate PC MLAs Heather Stephenson and Jeff Wharton.
The 2 MLAs are accused of trying to push through a controversial proposal to drill for silica sand in southeastern Manitoba, only days after losing the October election. It's standard for an outgoing government to avoid major decisions before a new government is sworn in, but the PCs are accused of ignoring that.
At any time that there's this serious of an allegation, that needs to be investigated.
Premier Wabkanu was the first to claim publicly the PCs acted inappropriately. Then 2 defeated Tory MLAs backed him up. Kevin Klein and Rochelle Squires say they were pressured as Environment Minister and Acting Environment Minister, respectively, to approve the project by PC MLA Jeff Wharton. But Wharton denies coercing anyone.
When we're hearing words, like I mentioned, inappropriate, extremely disappointing, insulting, dishonorable, disgusting, unconscionable, corruption, these are from their own members. These are former colleagues.
NDP caucus chair Mike Moy says the former premier must also be investigated. In a column in the Winnipeg Free Press, Squires says she was told Stephenson couldn't approve the project because the outgoing premier had a conflict of interest.
Like you, we have many questions, and we believe Manitobans deserve answers.
The PC said today the party made no major policy decisions after the election. It's now up to the NDP government to determine the fate of CO Silica's proposal. Residents continue to fear the drilling of thousands of wells may contaminate their drinking water, but the company insists the project will be safe. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The leader of the federal Conservative Party was in Winnipeg today, taking aim at the city's Liberal MPs and the carbon tax. In a wide-ranging news conference, Pierre Poilievre says his party brought forward a motion to exempt all home heating from the carbon tax. He wants Manitobans to remember those Liberal MPs who voted against it.
Those Winnipeg Liberals have voted against Winnipeg. They voted to raise your taxes. And as the temperature goes down and your home heating bill goes up, remember that your local Winnipeg Liberal MP voted to tax your home heat.
Poilievre was also asked if he supports searching the landfills for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. He says he believes every effort should be made to find the remains. People in Brandon could be hit with a 10% tax increase this year. The city has just released its proposed budget for 2024, and it needs an extra $5.3 million to pay for it. For taxpayers, that amounts to an average property tax increase of 10% on their municipal taxes. The city says it needs the money for Brandon transit, sewer upgrades, and other major projects. City officials warned last year that double-digit tax increases could be necessary for years to come. Brandon City Council will debate this proposed budget on February 2nd and 3rd. A Winnipeg woman is facing a firefighting bill of more than $100,000. It's due to fires in the vacant home she owns. The CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports.
This property was supposed to be an investment for Maria Suzuki. She bought this house on Elgin Avenue 3 years ago, but never expected how much it would end up costing her.
A lot of break-ins and all the, heartache and stuff. In 2023, I had 4 fires, and I got the huge bill from the city for the 3 fires.
The property has been vacant since 2022. During that time, there were break-ins and vandalism. Then last year, several fires. And the city billed her for those costs.
So it was May, July, and August. So it was $36,000, $32,000, and $36,000. Not exact, but the range of that.
And how much was the total fine?
Over $100,000.
Last year, the city changed the bylaw that charges empty building owners the costs of fighting fires, making penalties higher for property owners. Still, Suzuki's lawyer, John Prostansky, believes there was a miscalculation.
There is no description on the billing for firefighters or fire trucks at all. It says fire crews, and there are no definitions and no direction in terms of how to bill. In this particular situation on Elgin Avenue, about $2,601 per fire. So if there's 3 fires, that would be $7,800.
City of Winnipeg statistics show vacant building fires are on the rise. There were 41 in 2022, 64 in 2021, 84 in 2022, and 125 vacant building fires as of mid-November last year. Councillor Sherry Rollins helped push for last year's bylaw changes.
It is just, almost demolition by neglect, and there's fires. Well, there's going to be a $12,000 to $14,000 charge on that. Why? Because Winnipeggers want property owners to do the right thing.
Suzuki says she still intends to find tenants, but it took time to pay for all the repairs, and she's looking forward to her chance to appeal. Zabina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Strapping on a pair of skates is a favorite winter activity for many people. But not everyone has the skills or the equipment to get out on the ice. That's why the William White Neighbourhood Association has been putting on a Learn to Skate program. It's free to attend, and the skates are provided. CBC Manitoba's community reporter Shanna Lee Vidal and videographer Jason Empson went out to the Pritchard Playground on a snowy evening earlier this week to learn more.
What's happening here is we just kicked off our skate program. We're lucky we've got cold weather now, so we can have ice. We started it 5 years ago because unfortunately the area here, a lot of families in the area here can't afford to buy skates. It's not in the budget. So we wanted these kids the opportunity that other kids have. Well, we went ahead and we started asking for donations, and to date, we got overwhelmed with skates. We're up to 125 pairs of skates, men's, women's, children's, and it was just overwhelming the support we got from people in the community and around. Basically, the person comes in the front door here, signs up with the forms over here on the counter, and then they're given a pair of skates.
I am a figure skater. I was with Special Olympics from 2006 to 2013.
What do you love about figure skating?
All the things that I can do that others wish they could.
Like what?
Sow cows, toe loops, spins.
Yeah, go Peyton!
I also help the little kids here learn to skate.
I've been working with her.
When you're learning to skate, you're going to fall. That is a guarantee.
Good job, you're awesome.
I just give them lots of love and encouragement as they learn, because I understand that learning to skate is a challenge.
Yeah. It's exciting to see them on skates.
Putting the music on.
Some of them never been on skates before. And there you go. Get out of your way. So to see them on a pair of skates, and the little one today, never been on a pair of skates. She was skating with the red thing.
You want to try without the red thing now? Woo! Yes! Yeah, go Peyton! Woo-hoo!
And a few minutes later, she was skating on her own. So it's so exciting to see kids learn on the railing and then just be able to just do it on their own. It's so fun. It's so, I'm excited. It's really exciting. It gives the community something to do. Family, we can do family things here. The kids are here learning. We're going to become some great skaters.
It makes my heart so happy to watch fellow kiddos learn to figure skate and learn to find the love of skating that I have. And I hope they keep with it and they keep improving their skills.
Way to go, Peyton! Woo!
I just love the William White community, and come on out and skate and get some skates. We've got lots of pairs and we'd love to see more people out.
So again, that is the William White Neighbourhood Association out skating on Pritchard Playground, just checking my notes there. Join them. But if you want to join them while it's this cold, Riley Lachuk, you really have to bundle up, don't you?
Yes, you really have to bundle up. Layers is key, and make sure that you have any bare skin covered up, because freeze times are going to get pretty quick out there, and we'll show you some of that. So as I mentioned before, Winnipeg not under that extreme cold warning, but basically everywhere in the province is at the moment, save for the Red River Valley. So in Winnipeg in particular, we're looking at wind chills tonight and tomorrow morning at about minus 32. That means frostbite on exposed skin in about 15 to 20 minutes. Now, let's go to northern Manitoba, somewhere like Lynn Lake, which has been under an extreme cold warning for a couple of days now. Freeze times in the north, minus 44 for a wind chill tonight and tomorrow morning. That is exposed skin freezing in about 5 to 10 minutes. So that's kind of how you calculate the amount of clothes that you should be putting on as you're heading outside. So right now, minus 20 in Winnipeg. We're under a partly cloudy sky. We did see a few sunny breaks through the afternoon today. North winds at 20. We'll keep an eye on the wind as we head into the day tomorrow, because that's going to be one of those drivers of some of the really chilly air as we get into the next couple of days. Wind chill feeling like minus 31 at the airport at the top of the hour. So here is that extreme cold warning that I was mentioning into northwestern Ontario, everywhere except the Red River Valley, basically in Manitoba. Doesn't mean it's not cold, just does not quite meet the criteria. So a little bit of cloud cover across the province, some flurries in parts of the west, and we're going to see maybe some flurries making its way across southern Manitoba as we head into tomorrow morning. So stopping at 6 a.m. here, a slim chance we could see maybe some light snow in the Red River Valley down toward the international border. Otherwise, mainly cloudy through the morning. We'll start to see some sunnier breaks as we get into the afternoon, but more so on Sunday. We're expecting sunnier skies and more cloud cover in the north as we head into the later part of Sunday into Monday. So tonight in Winnipeg, we're looking at a low of minus 19 through the evening tonight, increasing clouds. Minus 20 first thing in the morning, a mainly cloudy sky. Chance we could see that light snow, but look at this, winds shifting out of the northwest, gusting up to 40 through the afternoon. So take care, especially if you're going to be driving out on some highways. If we do see some of that snow, could impact visibility, especially in the open areas through tomorrow. And by the time we hit afternoon, minus 18, that breeze continuing, and we'll expect more wind as we start the next work week. Minus 22 on Sunday under sun cloud mix. We'll see clouds start to build in through the afternoon. Chance we're going to see some flurries once again on Monday, and that's really all the precipitation I have in the 7-day forecast for the next week or so, at least for southern Manitoba. And winds continuing into Tuesday as well, a high of minus 20, Janet. And, you know, we really don't get much better than minus 20 for a daytime high for the next couple of weeks or so, Janet, or for the next week or so, I should say, Janet. So sticking below normal, and we'll go into detail on that when I come back in a bit.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Riley.
No problem.
The U.S. and Britain launched airstrikes overnight on Yemen. This for a way to push back against Houthi militants who've been attacking ships in the Red Sea since November. We'll have reaction after the break. Houthi militants have vowed to continue attacking ships in the Red Sea. That's despite the U.S. and Britain launching overnight attacks, airstrikes on multiple targets in Yemen. Washington says the bombings were an attempt to restore order on this vital shipping route, the Red Sea. But the militants, backed by Iran, have carried out dozens of attacks on commercial ships since November in support of Hamas and vow to keep doing it. CBC's Sasha Petrusek reports.
Outrage in Yemen's capital today, Houthi supporters railing against the American Great Devil for its attack overnight. Houthi officials saying 5 of its fighters were killed. They vowed the U.S. and Britain would pay a heavy price. American and British fighter jets took off from carriers and bases in Cyprus into the early morning hours, using Tomahawk cruise missiles to zero in on 60 targets across Yemen, says Washington.
We have no doubt that the targets chosen were targets that were meant specifically to degrade the Houthis' ability to launch drones, to launch missiles, to store them.
Canada joined several other countries in supporting the mission.
Canadian military members involved in some of the planning, but we did not have any operational assets involved in the precision strikes.
And they succeeded, says Washington.
Were the strikes successful last night, sir?
Yes. I don't think there's any civilian casualties. That's another reason why it's a success.
Since last fall, Houthi militants have used their bases to launch attacks, sometimes armed boardings, against international shipping in the Red Sea, justifying them as a reaction to Israel's operation in Gaza. The Houthis are backed and armed by Iran, and the West has been hesitant to confront them for fear of spreading conflict across the Mideast, a concern voiced by the UN today.
We are just extremely worried about the risks and the greater risks of escalation.
But experts say confronting these groups is actually the only way to prevent escalation.
Until you make Tehran pay a price, they're going to keep doing it.
Whether the U.S.-led mission has solved the threat to shipping isn't clear yet. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News, Toronto.
Israeli lawyers appeared at the International Court of Justice today to defend their country against accusations of genocide in Gaza. They said South Africa, which brought the case, has distorted the truth about the conflict.
If there have been acts that may be characterized as genocidal, then they have been perpetrated against Israel.
South Africa is asking the court to order Israel to stop its offensive in Gaza. A decision on that will probably take weeks. A ruling on the accusation of genocide could take years. International Court of Justice rulings are legally binding in theory, but they're not enforceable. Israeli leaders have defended their actions as a legitimate response to Hamas's attack in October. On that day, militants killed about 1,200 people and took more than 200 hostages, many of whom are still being held captive. To American politics now. The Republican Party's journey to choose its presidential nominee begins Monday in Iowa. Donald Trump remains the frontrunner there. It's also a first test of whether other Republican candidates can challenge him nationally. CBC's Katie Simpson is in the Hawkeye State right now, where a big snowstorm is messing with everyone's campaign plans.
Greetings from Iowa in the winter. Huge swaths of the state pretty much look like this. Take a look behind me right here. See that stop sign? It's been snowing for hours here, and we're seeing things like this all over the place. There are watches and warnings. It's dangerous to drive, and it is having an effect on the Iowa caucuses. We're seeing some of the candidates either cancel or postpone or turn some of their in-person events into virtual events. This is the last weekend before caucusing begins on Monday. So normally this is a huge political weekend where candidates who are vying to be their party's representative on that presidential ticket. They are out trying to shake hands, kiss babies, all of that cliche stuff to try and drum up that last-minute support to try and sway polls. But in this particular case, in Iowa, one thing is very important to remember, that no matter how much effort goes into that last-minute push, Donald Trump, the former president, has a massive lead, according to numerous polls here in this state. So even though some of those last-minute campaign push efforts by Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, by Nikki Haley, the former U.S. ambassador to the UN, they have a lot of minds to change if they're going to even try to get close to Donald Trump heading into the caucusing on Monday. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Mount Pleasant, Iowa.
Now to a story, the kind of story that people here in Winnipeg are desperately trying to avoid. Last month, a Regina man died in the cold next to a city street. Here, we're trying to keep people warm and not miss anyone. What's casting a spotlight on this tragedy is that several people had the chance to help the man. The CBC's Bonnie Allen reports.
It's just before 8 o'clock on December 30th when a city bus rolls up. A passenger talks to the bus driver, then stumbles out the back exit door on 4th Avenue in Regina. He falls on the ground and stays there for more than 7 hours in freezing temperatures without any help. He eventually dies. And it's all captured on Jeff Holt's security camera.
When you see a guy sitting there and you're watching him die on video, it's not a TV show, it's real life, right? So it's going to hit you.
Holt says he and his staff were astounded to see dozens of drivers, including 3 buses, drive by without checking on the man. And Holt says he was clearly visible.
He lay there from 8 o'clock until, well, we could tell at least till midnight with some movement trying to wave people down, and nobody stopped to check on this guy. He would kind of get up as much as he could, wave his arm, and nobody had stopped for the poor gentleman that fell out of the bus.
At about 3:30 in the morning, a person on a bicycle checked on the man and called 911. The police say the man's death is not criminal, and Holt says officers told him it was likely due to exposure to the cold. The coroner's office is still investigating the cause of death. As to whether the city bus driver who dropped the man off should have done more,
it is something that gets then reviewed with transit operators. They go through quite a bit of education and deal with quite a bit on our city buses, and so it's under review in terms of what happened, how it happened.
We can't ignore people anymore. These are human beings, and we need to look at solutions that are going to make a difference in their lives.
What kind of society are we? You know, we're driving by somebody and nobody, I guess the fear factor hits everybody and nobody wants to stop to help anybody anymore.
Holt can't stop thinking about what he saw on the video and imagining how the family must feel knowing their loved one was left to die. Bonnie Allen, CBC News.
Still ahead, Riley Lachuk with his look at this frigid Manitoba forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Canada's drag race has crowned its first ever Indigenous queen. Venus, a Métis drag queen, has family in St. Anne, Manitoba, and won the crown in the show's 4th season. CBC's Eli Glasner has more.
Baby, this is just the beginning!
Fierce and fabulous, the climax of Canada's drag race had everything that's made the RuPaul Drag Race spin-off a global smash. Now in its 4th season, the competition is the most popular Canadian reality show on Crave. With a growing international audience, it's helped Canadian queens Jimbo and Priyanka slay on the world stage.
I'll get you, Rue! And your little dog, too! I'm talking about you, Michelle.
Aurora Matrix was this season's runner-up. She says what sets Canada's drag apart is its diversity.
Some people present more femme, some people present more masc, and I think that the show just really inspires people to be themselves, to live their truth.
Tonight, it's all in the family.
Host Brooklyn Heights says the show's growing popularity is already having an effect.
We've seen like a huge influx of new baby drag queens who want to get on TV and want to be famous.
Spreading right across Canada.
Being in Winnipeg and then suddenly, there's 2 or 3 libraries that want to have a story time. There's, so-and-so wants to start doing drag bingos or drag brunches.
Who are you rooting for?
Last night, local queens Feather Talia and Miss Assuma Gender were getting set to host a watch party for the final episode, when history was made, the first Indigenous queen to win the competition.
The winner of Canada's Drag Race Season 4 is...
It does give me hope that I can go out there and represent myself, being a fat, queer, Indigenous person. And it also just makes it more, like, I can reach it more.
While drag shows continue to be targeted by hate groups, the show has pushed back, revealing a deeper layer.
Mom and Dad are so proud of you, son. You will be in our hearts. Oh my God.
Under the camp and cattiness, that's what it's all about, says Brooklyn.
I just think it's very important to expose people to someone that's different from them. You don't have to like it, you just have to respect it.
Serving fierce looks, love, and acceptance. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
Riley Laychuk joins us once again with a look at just how huge this low-pressure system is.
Yeah, as I showed you earlier in the show, extreme cold warnings really stretching right into British Columbia. In fact, some places in Alberta looking like we could dip into minus 40 territory through the night tonight. So looking at current temperatures across Western Canada right now, you can see Regina and Saskatoon both at minus 34 already, and we aren't even into our nighttime lows yet. Still, you can see sort of where the edge of this colder air is right now. Minus 20 at the moment in Winnipeg, minus 36 in Edmonton, and a minus 34 in Yellowknife. And even further south through the Dakotas, seeing temperatures in the minus teens right now, but where we are seeing some warmth is back to the east here, where Toronto, Windsor at 1 degree and minus single digits in the Atlantic region. So minus 20 in the capital region at the moment, as well as downtown at the Forks, minus 20 in Morris as well. And in the west, minus 25 in Dauphin, minus 27 in Swan River. And we're expecting to see temperatures dipping into minus 30 territory as we get into the night tonight. Minus 30 in Gillam, minus 32 in Lynn Lake. As I mentioned, most of the province under that extreme cold warning at the moment. So we are looking at mainly cloudy skies, some clear breaks through northwestern Ontario tonight. Temperatures minus 20 to minus 27 degrees through into the early morning lows. These are more like early morning lows right now. Minus 22 in Winnipeg tonight. Chance of some light snow really across southeastern Manitoba and across the southwest as well. We'll see winds really start to pick up through the night tonight through central and western Manitoba. Minus 27 in Swan River, and periods of light snow for Flin Flon and the Pot tonight. Minus 30 in Flin Flon, minus 33 in Lynn Lake. with that extreme cold warning. Periods of light snow taper off tomorrow, but still temperatures stuck in the high -20s, -28 in Lynn Lake, -24s for the Paw and Norway House. A chance of some light snow through the eastern part of northern Manitoba. Then this is the region where we see the winds start to pick up. Portage La Prairie, Morden Winkler, winds gusting out of the northwest up to 60 through the afternoon. Could make some highway travel treacherous as we get through into the afternoon, especially with some of that blowing snow through the afternoon. Tomorrow, chance of some flurries through the early part of the morning tomorrow through the Red River Valley, -19 in the afternoon for both Winnipeg and Emerson, and temperatures around -20. Janet, for northwestern Ontario, a very chilly 7-day forecast is coming up.
Thank you so much, Riley. This is the second Friday of the year. It's a day known as Quitter's Day. Apparently, it's when most people tend to throw in the towel on their New Year's resolution. CBC's Katie Breen has more now about someone who made one years ago and stuck to it.
This was Tony Bussey. That is, until the forest fires in Fort McMurray changed his life. When people were being evacuated almost 8 years ago, he needed 2 plane seats.
It was just a lot of how in the world did I let myself get to this? And, you know, I just felt very ashamed. Part of me felt kind of selfish in a way, but yeah, it was a horrible feeling. Just kind of hopeless, really.
He's not exactly a New Year's resolutionist, but Bussey does know a thing or two about setting a goal and sticking with it.
And what's worked for me is baby steps. You take small little steps over a long amount of time and you will get results. It's not something that's going to happen a day or a week or even a month. It's a lot of baby steps done over years, and then you develop habits. And then as you develop habits, they become easier and easier to maintain.
He's lost more than 300 pounds since the fire, down from almost 600 pounds at his heaviest. Just over a year ago, Bussey underwent surgery to have the excess skin on his stomach removed, and he has a second skin surgery scheduled for April. It's not just weight. Bussey says any goal can be achieved going bit by bit. And once you start achieving something, he says, the rest just falls into place.
The satisfaction I find of meeting your goal, even trying to attain to it, whether that's financial, whether that's giving up alcohol, drugs, whether that's just improving just something in your day-to-day life, it makes everything else go easier.
Not every day is going to be a success. Bussey says the important thing is to not let a bad day derail you. Failure's part of the process. Bussey says if you pick a goal and stick with it, it can snowball, and the sky's the limit.
It's always been a dream of mine to run a marathon.
Katie Breen, CBC News, St. John's.
Just wait, how much you want to bet he'll do it? Hey, if your goal is to cut back on the sweet stuff, stick around. We'll get some more advice when I speak with a registered dietitian on how to curb the sweets. We'll be right back. If you would like to eat healthier in 2024, you're not alone. But breaking bad dietary habits and ignoring cravings can be tough. Registered dietitian and personal trainer Chiwe Asaguera joins us now with information that could help. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Sugar seems to have a hold on many of us. Why are cravings for sweets often so strong?
Well, sugar tastes really good, so that's definitely at the top of the list as to why people might have a hard time giving up sugar. So it tastes good, and when we eat sugar, it makes our brain really happy, so that can create a want to go back for more. And sugar's in a lot of foods that we eat, packaged foods, and so it can just be harder to give it up if we're not a little bit more intentional about it.
And should we give it up? Is it bad for us?
Too much sugar can have negative health consequences, so we do want to pay attention to how much we're having. We want to think about what type of sugar, though. Lots of foods that we eat have naturally occurring sugar, like the lactose in dairy foods. What we want to focus on are our added sugars, so that's the refined sugar that can be added to food, whether we do that at home, in our own food, or if it's something that we're buying at the grocery store.
What is it that sugar does that's bad?
So sugar can lead to some chronic diseases. So one of the ones that is most prevalent is type 2 diabetes or even pre-diabetes. So if too much sugar is eaten, too much frequency of sugar, it just brings the blood sugar up and keeps it there. So there is a happy medium that we want to have in regards to blood sugar control. So that's one of the main things, is just the way that sugar can affect for long-term chronic disease.
You've been counseling people on nutrition for years. What do you find most often holds people back from achieving their nutritional goals?
You know, it can be a few things, but for some folks, it can be restricting too much. So knowing that you want to make a change in your nutrition is great, but having a plan of action that can be slow and gradual is what leads to that long-term success. So going 0 to 100 or kind of going cold turkey, cutting all your favorite foods out without any type of plan or support is usually what makes it really difficult for people to be able to make long-term nutrition change, as well as cooking skills, because sometimes when people are wanting to eat more nutritious food, if there's not cooking skills or knowing how to prepare food at home, that's where a barrier can come up.
What about emotional eating? Is that a real challenge for many people? I know it is for me.
Yeah, so emotional eating is definitely something that can be challenging for people. And that's because when we eat food that makes us feel good, that can become a management technique. So when we talk about emotional eating, we're talking about a coping mechanism that's triggered by stress. That's what emotional eating is, a coping mechanism triggered by stress. So what people need to focus on, well, what are my triggers? Where is my stress coming from? And how can I find a solution that's not food? That's really what we're talking about with emotional eating.
And what would you recommend?
So definitely looking at, well, what are my triggers? For a lot of people, they have to kind of work backwards. It's not like a snap of the finger behavior change that's going to happen overnight. So when you realize, oh, I had an emotional eating experience, then, well, what happened? Work backwards. What was the stress trigger? What was going on? Was it a frustrating conversation? Was it a difficult feeling? Maybe you're feeling sad or lonely. And then think about, well, what could be a coping mechanism for that stress that's not food? And then it's practicing, giving yourself some time to practice, to recognize those triggers, and try something other than food to be a solution.
Registered dietitian and personal trainer Chiwe Asaguera, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome.
Baby steps. But dress warm if you're baby stepping tonight. Your 7-day forecast and daily lift are still to come.
The Leaf, transformed into a garden of fresh floral mannequins that you need to experience. Fleur de Ville Voyage. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
Here's a look at your 7-day forecast now. As I mentioned throughout the show, we do have some really cold weather coming our way for the next week or so. So we're looking at a high of -19 by the time we hit afternoon tomorrow. Northwest winds at 40 in the city. Could see those winds up to 60 through the afternoon. Outside the city, though, -22 for a high on Sunday, -19, -20 for Monday and Tuesday, breezy conditions, and then sunny and cold for the balance of the work week, -19s and -20s. Keep in mind, normal high for this time of the year is -13, so we're kind of playing payback here for all that warm weather we had back in December. A very special retirement party was held today at the Holy Family Home in North Point, Douglas, for Ruger, the home's unofficial therapy dog, who has spent 8 years comforting residents there.
So lovely. Whether he was curled up on the end of beds at the foot of the bed or going for walks with residents, Ruger has been a very good boy. Now he's 14 years old and hanging up his special bandana. Here's your Daily Left.
We are celebrating my dog's retirement. And he's been coming to Holy Family for 8 years, once a month. But he just turned 14, and with that, we see that he's tiring a little bit. And our motto here is to serve and love, and he's done that. He was such a great dog with my son. I got him from the Humane Society when he was just 2 months old. So he was really good with kids. And I decided to try him at Deer Lodge Hospital for a little bit because I live close to there, and he was super. So I asked my supervisor here if I could bring him in, and this is how this all started. In coming here, he's provided a lot of companionship for people who are sad. By bringing an animal, whether it's a cat or a dog or a rabbit or whatever, can come onto the property, it just provides sort of a sense of normalcy, I think, for people. It just makes it normal. Quite often we'll just let him be in the dining room here, and the people, you can just see there's a comfort level there, like this is normal.
See, a big believer I am that dogs just make it a home, right? Make it better.
Very true.
Unless you're highly allergic to them, like Riley, who's currently dog sitting.
It's more the dust.
It's more the dust, you think? Well, feel better soon. Great job,
See you
great
on
having you
Monday.
here. Have a nice weekend.